Hi everyone, I'm Frank Tiano, the Superintendent of Schools, and welcome to our third episode of Behind the Black and Orange, the show that takes you behind the scenes of the Uxbridge Public School District. Today we are joined by Ms. Stephanie Geddes, our Director of Pupil Services, who will bring us in for a closer look at our special education department. More specifically, we will be discussing how we prepare students with disabilities for the important transitions that take place throughout their school career. In the first segment, Jennifer Ramsdell, our preschool coordinator, will be here to provide us with some background on how we welcome our youngest learners into the integrated preschool. During our second segment, Lori Tobin, who is our high school special education chairperson, will be on set to discuss the transitions our special needs students experience during their secondary years. Please enjoy the introduction to our show, and we'll be right back with Stephanie Geddes and Jennifer Ramsdell. And welcome back. As promised, we have with us Stephanie Geddes. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello.
Stephanie is our Director of Pupil Services here in the Uxbridge Public School District. That means she's the Special Education Director, and she's in charge of related services as well. Stephanie, you've been here since about 2016.
Yep.
And just by way of background, you get 15 years in special education, and you're a licensed psychologist, correct?
All of those are true.
Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I see you brought a friend.
I did.
We have Jennifer Ramsdell. Jennifer is our newest administrator joining us here in December. And with over 20 years experience at the early childhood education level and special education, she is our preschool director as well as handling some other administrative services like extended school year.
Right.
And Jen, we're so glad that you're with us in the district, and we're glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Alrighty. And so we're talking about special education, and more specifically, we're talking about transitions that our students go through from ages 3 to 21. First, let's talk about the essential question, which is, what is special education?
So that's actually a really big question, but a very simple definition for that really big question is that it's a term that encompasses the services for students and instruction for students who have disabilities ages 3 to 21 so that they can have access to their public education kind of on the same playing field. For every student, we have a meeting where we determine whether or not a student is eligible, and we create for them something that's called an individualized education plan, or as we call it, an IEP. We have a thing for acronyms.
Sure we do.
So we call it the IEP, and it outlines for us the specific supports, services, and direct instruction that every student needs. And within that, each IEP team is really charged with determining what's going to give the student the most educational benefit within the least restrictive environment. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get the students the most supports and services that we can to teach them the skills and strategies they need so that they can be dependent and no longer need us.
So that's that gradual release
Absolutely.
that we have.
Yeah.
And it levels the playing field as well.
Right.
But we're talking about transitions, and why is that such an important topic for our students in special education?
So as I said earlier, we work with students who are ages 3 to 21. And when you're talking about age 3, you're talking about parents' babies, and you're talking about their first introduction to an instructional setting. And so we really want to make sure that that's as smooth as possible for parents. We want them to really feel kind of a rapport and trust with us that they have even in their home when they have home-based services. And then on the other end of it, we have students who are leaving us and going into the adult world for the first time. And again, that's another really scary moment for a lot of parents. Have we taught them enough? Are they ready to go and be on their own? And so we really, again, want to make sure that we've made that as smooth as possible for them so that all of our students can leave here being independent adults.
And having 2 children myself, I know there's a little anxiety about sending your child off
Right.
to school and graduation as well. So I can't imagine with children with disabilities.
Right, exactly.
So that leads us to Jen. Jen, so at our integrated preschool here in Uxbridge, can you tell us a little bit about what happens there?
So as you were just talking about, our integrated preschool is really the first exposure to the school setting for many of our children. We have teachers that are teaching students that are enrolled as tuition students, as well as students that are enrolled based on a disability and determined by the team process, as Stephanie mentioned. Our goal is really to support that transition. We're taking children from home-based services through early intervention, entering them into the public school setting, and that's scary for families. So we really want to help smooth that transition, make it as seamless as possible for families so that they feel safe sending their little ones off. Our program is developmentally appropriate, multi-age, and standard-based, so we really are working towards helping that young child be ready for school entrance for kindergarten.
And talk to us just a little bit about our staff. These are licensed teachers, master's degrees and
Yes.
all that.
Yes. And our teachers are licensed early childhood educators. They have special education background as well, because they really have a dual role working with these children to really integrate and provide these children with a transdisciplinary approach to their learning.
Okay. Now, as we talk about the approach to learning, much of it is hands-on and experiential learning. Can you tell us why that's so important for our younger students?
Children learn through play, and play is very meaningful and purposeful. When someone first looks in, they may think they're just playing, but there's so much embedded within that. They're learning how to navigate those social relationships, they're learning how to problem solve, really building a good foundation for school learning. And at the preschool level, our goal is to really help them develop a love for learning so that they can have a school career that is productive at their own pace and level.
Every time I go in there, they look like they're having fun.
They're having
But they're
a blast.
working hard,
But
right?
they're working very hard,
Okay.
yes. Behind that play,
Yeah.
there is a lot of underlying skills that are being addressed. And they're targeting the frameworks, the standards that go all the way up through high school. So it's pretty cool to see them in action.
It really is cool. And you mentioned that it's multi-aged. And can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. We really believe that it's best practice for, at this young level, for all children to it's a range of learning. They're ages 3 to 5. All of our programs have children that are within that age range. And the philosophy behind that is really to have the older children modeling those social, behavioral, early academic skills for the younger children. The other component that it allows for our program is, as we have children throughout the year entering our programs, when they turn age 3 and require special education services. So it really creates a good span within a classroom for all learners as they enter in.
Nice. Now, you mentioned prior to age 3, students with special needs may require early intervention services. Could you tell us a little bit about the transition from those
Sure.
types of services
Sure.
specifically?
Sure. Prior to a child's 3rd birthday, we receive a referral from the family and the early intervention agency. Once we receive that, we reach out to the family via email, phone call, an introductory letter, really explaining the transition process for these children. So we really, again, trying to make that transition seamless. When we receive the referral, I go out and I meet the family, I meet the child, really get a sense of what the child's needs are, and then we conduct the initial evaluation. Through that process, we determine whether or not they require special education services, and if so, then they enter into our program.
See, that's interesting for our folks who are watching the show who typically think school starts at kindergarten, age 5. But that's not true for all of our Uxbridge Public School students.
Right, not at all.
Now, we talk about meeting the needs of our students. We talk about a community. And can you tell us a little bit about the community partners that we have here in Uxbridge or the greater Uxbridge area?
Yeah, we have some really good connections with some agencies in the Uxbridge and surrounding towns. We work closely with Beginning Bridges and also Head Start for those children that may not qualify for our program, but really all children benefit from social opportunities. So I try and connect families with those agencies as well. And again, with Criterion Valley Early Intervention, I have a strong connection with them as we work very closely together to, again, support that transition. But Beginning Bridges is a wonderful connection in our community also for families, because they provide many early childhood opportunities for kids outside of the structured school setting. So we really try and build those connections that way as well.
And just a connection there too. So Beginning Bridges is actually housed next door to where our Independence Project is. And so what we've been able to do is, with our students who are 18 to 22, and we're going to be talking about them in a minute, and their own transition, they're having an opportunity to work with those of our youngest students too at Beginning Bridges to kind of get some of those skills and be able to be a part of that and see the beginning part of the education of where they started. So it's a nice connection.
And it's nice where they're housed is where the central
Right,
office's
yeah,
house.
exactly.
So we get to see from ages 3 to 21, and we get to see it firsthand.
Right.
They do some great work in both programs.
Absolutely.
That's
And
awesome.
our last question there for you, Jen, is now students are, they're going to graduate preschool.
Yep.
And they're going to go to kindergarten. So there's one more transition
Right.
that our regular ed students who are just entering kindergarten for the first time may not be experiencing. Can you tell us how we prepare our kiddos for that?
So for our students that are enrolled in our program at Taft ELC, we start in January, February, March, really working with the staff at the kindergarten level to support the transition for these kids. We talk about their goals and objectives. We meet as school-based teams. We meet with families at their IEP meetings to really talk about what is going to support the best transition for that child.
And we also do a larger transition information night as well for students going from preschool to kindergarten, and all of our community families, even if they're not involved with our preschool, regardless, they're invited to the kindergarten transition night, and that's actually going to be happening fairly soon.
You're going to plug the date right
I
now?
am going to plug
Go
it.
ahead.
It's on March 7th. It's at 6:30, and it's at Taft ELC. So the administration there will be giving a brief tour. They'll be giving a brief PowerPoint presentation and talking about what it's like moving from preschool over to kindergarten. In addition, I'm going to do another plug. We have a transition night coming up for all of our students who are transitioning into and out of school on March
great.
13th.
Fantastic.
And that's going to be happening at the high school in the library at 7 o'clock. We've invited a lot of our partner or our area agencies like Mass Rehabilitation Commission. We've invited the Department of Mental Health. We've invited the Department of Developmental Services, Early Intervention. We invited Head Start is coming, and as well as a couple of other local businesses that work with our students with disabilities.
Yeah. This community's been very supportive of all of our students, and we're grateful for that, and grateful for the opportunity for you to pull them together for our parents for one-stop shopping.
Absolutely.
And we'll be able to find that information on our website under Pupil Services
Yes.
Department. Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you.
When we come back, we will have Lori Tobin. She is our special education chairperson right here at Uxbridge High School. In the meantime, please see some of the footage shot at our preschool and our Independence Project. We'll be right back.
So what you saw today in our preschool program at Taft ELC were students enjoying Read Across America Week, and they were dressed up as a Dr. Seuss character. So our video shows all of our children in our multi-age classrooms using developmentally appropriate and a standard-based curriculum. As you saw, children learn through play, and play has purpose for our students. Through center-based activities, our students are exposed to literacy, math, science, and the arts. By providing them with an environment that encourages exploration and learning through doing, they are building a strong foundation to becoming a successful learner in today's world. Thus,
That's okay.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead. Yep.
our hands-on experiential activities are working towards having our students develop a love for learning that will carry them through their school career. We hope that this will create a positive transition into the school setting.
Today, we are cooking Oriental vegetable wraps, and they are going to be good. Everybody had their own task, and we had different students that were cutting, dicing, slicing, getting everything ready so that we could have the two young women sauteing now. And we're going to be joining together as a group in a few minutes and enjoying a lunch. One of the things, as I said before, that we really pride ourselves on here is having a family atmosphere, and that means cooking and eating together as well as doing social activities together. At the Independence Project, we really go over everything that a young adult needs to become an active member of the community, a productive member of the community, if you will. Everything from social emotional skills all the way to cooking skills, as you can see, with vocational skills obviously being a main focus, because we want to make sure that we send out the young adults ready to become independent, thus the name Independence Project. Yesterday we ran a group session on friendship skills. I think one of the most important things is to be able to share space effectively with others, and so we take it very seriously here at the Independence Project that we have the necessary social skills that we can use to then make friends. We talked about getting out into the community, joining clubs, getting involved in sports, joining gyms, etc., as a way to meet new people with similar interests.
And we're back. With us still is Stephanie Geddes, our Director of Pupil Services. Stephanie, thanks for staying for the second segment. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for keeping me here.
And joining us on the set is Lori Tobin. Lori is our high school special education chairperson. Lori's been with us since 2016, and you are a licensed school adjustment counselor by trade.
Yes, correct.
All righty. We're still talking special education, and we're still talking transitions. But Stephanie, now if you could lead us through some of the transitions that our secondary special education students experience.
Sure, I can do that. So secondary transition is a thing in special education. It's where we work with students who are between the ages of 14 and 21. Typically we start that when they're at age 13 because they're going to turn 14 within that IEP period. So it's really all about creating the IEP to be about their vision for life. What are their interests? What do they need to be able to accomplish in order to reach that vision? So it's making sure that the IEP team, as they go through the process, really keeps that at the forefront of their mind. It becomes more student-directed as they get older, because ultimately we want them to be successful adults doing something that they really want to do. So that's what the secondary transition really is about. And for that, we work with a lot of state agencies to assist us in making that transition from the high school to the adult world.
Okay, and it's more student-centered, so this is the age where students participate in their IEPs?
Yes. So once they turn 13, we will be inviting them to their IEP meeting, and we really do want them to be a part of that team process because it's all about them. This is a table of adults talking about their life. They need to have a voice there.
Absolutely. Some of the agencies you were just talking about a second ago, could you tell us some of those?
Sure. So there are 3 that we usually work with in regards to transition in the secondary world, and I already mentioned them in the earlier segment, but to give you a little bit more background, we work with the Department of Developmental Services, which is another acronym, DDS.
Sure.
And we work with them with students who have moderate to severe disabilities and more in the developmental or intellectual area. Students who really need that support enabling them to be able to live and work and participate in their community as independently as possible for each student. Some of those students go to work on in a day placement, or some of them go to group home placements. It depends really on the level of need for student. Another one is the Department of Mental Health, or DMH as we call it, and those are for students. That agency is more for students who contend with mental health challenges, who have some emotional or social difficulties in how to navigate their world. And so DMH helps those students make a smooth transition as well. And then the last one that we work with most often is called the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, or MRC. And we work with them for most of our students because what they focus on is really that vocational piece. They're working to try to get students paid or unpaid internships, getting them a chance to be at a job site with support or without support, depending on the student. They do come to the high school once a month for those direct referrals, and we also give them we send them the paperwork when we need to try to make someone eligible for them as well.
Nice. So now, as a student's graduating our schools, and they need to connect with adult agencies, how do we help facilitate that? Along the same process?
It is a part of that process. So really what we file is called a Chapter 688. It's something that happens through typically the IEP process, but it can happen outside of that as well if a student does require it. The goal is to provide that information to the agency at least 2 years before the student is going to leave us. So for most students, that's going to be in their junior year. And they come and they're a part of that IEP team meeting that we're having.
Nice. Now, Lori, down to you. Stephanie had mentioned earlier, and we've been talking about students, Uxbridge Public Schools, that are here from ages 3 to 21. So when Jen was on, we were talking about students who arrive before the typical K-12 programming. Can you tell us a little bit about our students after they leave grade 12?
Sure. So after high school, we have a program called the Independence Project. It's for students between the ages of 18 through 21, for students that have moderate to severe special needs. The young adults at the Independence Project, they focus on developing and strengthening different life, functional, vocational, social, and community skills. Basically, the goal is to help them transition to adulthood and ensure that they have the skills necessary so that they can become as independent as possible.
And they're a great group of kids down there. And I know Mr. T does a wonderful job. Like we mentioned, that's where our central office is. And, just an absolute delight. Now, can you walk us through a little bit about what their individual day may look like? Or
Sure.
a typical day?
Yeah, so that would really depend on the particular young adult, because we try to program for each of them based on their particular areas of interest or their strengths as much as possible. So, of course, there are components of the program that all of the students participate in, such as lessons that are related to consumer skills, meal preparation, budgeting, and social skills and life skills. And actually, the current space that the program is in, it has been modified into a studio-style apartment, so the students are able to practice and maintain the skills that they're going to need as they become independent adults.
So for independent living, as well as independent vocation. So perhaps you could talk to us a little bit about some of the internship places and the vocational placements they have.
Sure, that's where we get more into the individualizing piece and basing it on the particular young adult's strengths. So we have partnered with many different local businesses and agencies in the community over the past few years so that we can provide those vocational opportunities. So we've had students work at Uxbridge House of Pizza, Lydia Taft House, Hannaford, Milford TV, Whiten Community Center, Great Stories Comic Book Shop, Honey Farms, Beginning Bridges, Southwick Zoo, I don't want to forget anybody, St. Camillus Nursing Home in Whitensville.
We'll just have them running on the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the show.
And we actually even have a student that recently started a job at the new T-Mobile store in town.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, as we talked about earlier, the community of Uxbridge really supports our all of our students and our special education students in particular.
Yes.
Lori, thanks so much. Stephanie, I know you wanted to close and plug another event.
I do. I'm going to plug again the transition night that we're having on March 13th. But on that same night, what I didn't mention earlier is that we're also having an information night for 7th grade parents who are coming, whose children are going to be coming to the high school next year. So on that same night, they're going to have the opportunity for one-stop shopping to learn all about transition, 7th to 8th, as well as all of the agencies that we work with.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing more good work from all of our kids, ages 3 to 21. Thanks so much for being on the show. And from all of us here at Uxbridge Public Schools, our outstanding crew of students under Mr. Barros' direction, and our good friends at UCTV, I'm Frank Tiano. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Behind the Black and Orange.